Up to 10 children killed in Texas in the United States of America, a more or less everyday occurrence. But I cannot just sweep by it, because it informs, hangs over like a cloud, everything that's happening in the world. The idea that such hyper levels of violence are normal, that the state can mete them out, and the state will defend others who meet such hyper levels of violence out, is a part of the whole world's problem. You know my view on Donald Trump. I wasn't happy that he became the president, but I was very happy indeed that Hillary Clinton did not. And the reason why I made that differentiation is because Donald Trump promised to stay home and clean house, drain the swamp, when in fact he has replenished the swamp with a lot of new, or rather old, sewage. No doubt that will be a, if you'll forgive the pun, leitmotif through the rest of the show, but we have a lot to be going on with. Little John Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons, is in deep, deep doo-doo. And I've got the doyen of political scientists, Professor John Curtis, to make a rare foray into discussing personnel matters. And on the principle that there are some good days to bury good news as well as bad news, which other day would the British state choose to release from hospital the hapless Mr. Skripal than the day where every journalist and every television camera and every microphone in the land appears to be outside Windsor Castle? Well, if they hoped it would pass unnoticed, they forgot Galloway. They forgot the mother of all talk shows, because we have no intention of allowing this Skripal story to go away. We want to know, because we could patent this. We could cure cancer. We could cure the common cold. We could cure any medical ailment in the world, because we have cured two people stricken with the most deadly nerve agent known to man. So pure that only a state could have produced it. A nerve agent that ought to have killed them both and many, many others besides, within seconds, definitely within minutes, but didn't even start to act until 4 hours later, and act fatally it did not. Both Miss Skripal and Mr. Skripal are out, and say thanks to God for that. But that's not the end of the story, not while I'm alive, though perhaps it's risky for me to put it that way. Charles Shoebridge, former army officer, Scotland Yard detective, counter-terrorism intelligence officer, international politics graduate, lawyer, broadcaster, and how's that for a CV? Charles Shoebridge is on the show too. And we'll be talking about a hitherto obscure affair that might be known as the Wikipedia affair in times to come. There's a man, at least we think he's a man, he could be a woman, he could be 10 men or 10 women, he could be a robot, he could be a fully fledged government department operating out of GCHQ. Nobody knows, though if he'd like to call me, I promise we won't save his phone number, and this number is 0344 499 1000. Mr. Cross, if you're a human being, blink twice and call us, and I give you my word of honour that we will not save your telephone number. We can even maybe disguise your voice. Anyway, who is Philip Cross? Well, if I give you just this by way of introduction, Philip Cross has, quote-unquote, edited, quote-unquote, my Wikipedia page 1,800 times. Who knew I had a life so interesting? Who knew I had a life so long that you would make 1,800 edits to it? And by edits, of course, we mean the shredding of any scintilla of anything positive and the insertion and distortion of anything that can make me look bad. Now, don't think this is special pleading, because I have never looked at my Wikipedia page, and I never, ever will, because I knew that systemically it would be a mere playground for my political enemies. I just had no idea that one particular political enemy would dedicate his life. I'm talking 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking Christmas Day. I'm talking 75 edits a day for 14 years by someone I've never heard of, never set eyes on, wouldn't recognize if he was sitting next to me on the omnibus. Indeed, come to think of it, maybe that was him sitting next to me on the omnibus. Now, if this was just dealing with me, of course, I wouldn't even bring it to your attention. I don't tell you about every troll that's trying to damage me. We'd never get time for anything else. But there's what scientists call a cluster of victims of the prodigious, the absolutely indefatigable, get it, Mr. Cross? Indefatigable Philip Cross. And that cluster is all the usual suspects. Everybody that opposed the Iraq War, everybody that opposed British government policy towards Russia, everybody that supports Palestine, everybody that opposes Israel, everybody, you get the picture. I don't have to develop it, do I? And when he's run out of edits to make on individuals, he turns to their children. He's turned on John Pilger's children. But he doesn't hate everybody. There's some people that he likes very, 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 very much. And he looks after their Wikipedia pages with the tenderest of care. Now, that may well be his undoing, because there are lots of forensic scientists on our side. I've got one in the Antipodes working for me right now, gratis, pro bono. And he's analysing the writings of the people that Philip Cross really, 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 really likes, and the writing of Philip Cross himself. And guess what? Well, I can't tell you yet, but I soon will, and from the rooftops. And not only does he tenderly guard the pages of those he really, 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 really likes, he even tenderly cares for their parents' Wikipedia pages. In fact, one of the parents of the journalists that he really likes, had his Wikipedia page set up by Philip Cross, an entirely obscure individual. In fact, the son, the journalist, is a pretty obscure individual, but by definition, his mother and father are even more obscure. But Philip Cross took time off from his work. Well, he can't have work, actually, because if you're editing Wikipedia all day and all night, and often right through the night, there's no way that you can have paid work. Unless, of course, this is your paid work. Well, I've got one of his victims, political journalist, commentator Neil Clark, on the Philip Cross affair just after 8 o'clock. And I'm also looking at a momentous anniversary, which will mean not as much as it should to the youngest of the listeners this evening, and will mean perhaps through rose-coloured glasses a very great deal to the older. I refer, of course, to the year 1968. Les événements, the events, when London, Paris, Rome, Berlin were in flames, and hundreds of thousands of demonstrators were on the streets against the war. The Vietnam War, it was then, lots of wars since, but that one was seminal. Against Nixon, against anybody who was repressing and suppressing people at home and abroad. It was a revolutionary moment, and it found its cultural echo in the music, in the writing, in the journalism of the time. in Woodstock. All of these were reverberations of les événements, the events of 1968. They had Woodstock, we've got Windsor. What does that tell you about how things have changed? No crowds heading for Woodstock. Tout le monde heading for Windsor. But this will be a royal wedding-free zone if I can arrange it this evening. So I've looked at the soundtrack for 1968, and I'll tell you something. It's truly, truly stunning. Which I hope this radio show, which for those who weren't listening last night, let me give them some good tidings. This slot, 7 to 10, has increased its listenership. Not just 63% on last year at this time, but 62% on 3 months ago. An acceleration of which Elon Musk would be proud. An acceleration unprecedented in radio here in TalkSport Talk Radio Towers. The whole world is tuning in to this radio show. This is Woodstock. This is our Woodstock. It's the mother of all talk shows.